So I saw Ballerina at the theaters when it came out, and I was really excited for this because I love the John Wick movies, and I'm a big fan of the actress, the lead actress, Anna De Armas. Like, I think she's a great actress personally, so I'm a fan of hers. And the idea of doing a spin-off in the John Wick movies about a different character I think could have been interesting. And I liked the trailers. I thought the trailers looked like it could be a great action movie. Coming out of this, my overall thoughts on this movie, it was fun, but I was disappointed in this. And let me start off with the positives. I do think the accent is great. That is the main thing about this movie that made it at least a fun time for me. Like, it's not great, but the accent made it entertaining enough for me personally. Like, I had a fun time with it because of the accent, but that's really the best part of this movie. I do think the accent is great personally. Like, it was entertaining accent to me. And I think Anna De Armas, I think she does a good job. Like, I liked her character. I didn't think like I didn't love her character. Like, I don't think she's as interesting as compelling as John Wick personally. Like, but I think I liked her character. I didn't love her character, but I think she does a good job in this movie. Like, I didn't have really problem with her performance. I felt like her character could have been given more depth, especially with the setup of the character. And I think she does a good job with that. And I don't think she's quite as like there was something missing for me where I don't think she quite nails accent as well as Keanu Reeves. Like, she does a good job with the accent in this movie, but there was just a little. It felt like there was something missing a little bit, which doesn't quite nail the accent as well as Keanu Reeves in the John Wick movies. But overall, I think she does do a good job when it came to the accent scenes in this. The negative things with this movie is that it's generic. The plot is really pretty paper thin. And I know some people say with action movies, you don't like sometimes with action movies you don't need like a complicated plot. I don't really completely agree with that because I think they could have put a little bit more effort into the plot in this movie. It's really paper thin. And I know people say, well, the John Wick movies are action movies. Yes, but I think with the John Wick movies, what I love about those movies is that you felt extremely invested in John Wick's character. His whole setup in the first movie about that with the dog, where he loses his wife, and the dog is a gift from his wife. And there's just a lot more meaning to John Wick's backstory and setup in this movie, and him trying to get out of the life. And every John Wick movie had like a new element to the lore or to the world. I just think the John Wick movies were better story wise too. And the story is just kind of like even more paper thin in this movie, where it doesn't really add anything new to the John Wick world or to the lore. It's very paint by numbers. The plot in this, it's just like I said, paint by numbers and paper thin. And when it comes to Anna Dama's character, her setup, it's just very generic. Like, they don't really do enough at the beginning for me to get me emotionally attached to the character like they did with John Wick. And I don't dislike her character. Like I said, it's just they don't do like enough to make me love her character. Would make me feel like, oh man, I really want her to get revenge. So I just think this setup is like a little. It's just very generic and paper thin. The plot, and it adds nothing. And there's also this whole subplot with Norman, the actor from Walking Dead, Norman Reedus. This whole subplot with this guy and his kid, Norman Reedus. He's only in this movie for like a small role. And I'll be honest, I don't really. His character just felt kind of like thrown in there. This whole subplot with him and his kid, and it's overall that whole subplot just didn't really. I don't. They didn't really like dive enough into it. It's just kind of like he's there, and I feel like he just was basically playing his character from Walking Dead. Like, he doesn't really add anything to the movie. His character, so I just felt like his character was just pointless and not very interesting, and it just feels like him playing himself. And the whole subplot, it just felt like it was kind of like not all that interesting to me. And also the timeline of this is supposed to take place like during John Wick 3, but at the same time after John Wick 3, before John Wick 4. So John Wick is in this movie, if you've seen the trailers. And I'm going to say this when it comes to John Wick in this movie. The one thing I do like is that when he comes into this movie and they're fighting each other, I do like the fact that it shows that he is a much better fighter than her. Like, One thing I was worried about was they're gonna make a like, are they gonna like do a thing with in the spinoff? They make the new character's gonna like be able to beat the main original character, and I was happy that at least when they were fighting each other, he gives her time to get her revenge, but that whole fight he's beating our ass. That they clearly show he's a more skilled and better fighter, so I was happy about that. The negative thing with John Wick in this movie is that he's in for a quick scene at the beginning, and then he like towards the end he comes in, and I do feel like he was part of the reshoots to character. It kind of felt because this movie went through reshoots. It was originally I know this movie is directed by the guy who did the first two Underworld movies, and then the original director of the John Wick movies came in to reshoot some of the movie and amp up the asset. I don't know how much he reshot, but John Wick feels like it was like it felt like John Wick had a small role and then they expanded it with the reshoots to me, and I could be wrong with that. It just felt that way to me. And I do feel like even though it was cool to see his character and I love the character, I do think it takes away from her character when it feels like you're kind of when it feels like he's part of the reshoots where you're kind of like having him have a lost role than he needed the character. Again, it was cool to see the character. I like the fact they showed that he is a better fighter than her, but I did feel his character did feel like it was part of the reshoots a little bit, where he was in there for a small one and expanded. And also the timeline of this movie, I have the one of the big problems I have with John Wick being in this movie. I don't think it really makes a whole lot of sense timeline wise, because in John Wick 3, at the end of John Wick 2, he's on a one. John Wick 3, he's like you have all these assassins trying to kill him because they put out the bounty on him at the end of John Wick 2. So the whole world is trying to kill him in John Wick 3, and I find it really hard to believe that he has time to do a side mission. That felt to me like timeline wise, it doesn't really make a lot of sense with where this movie's taking place and what's going on in John Wick 3, the events of that movie. So that felt a little fuzzy to me. I was like, I don't really think this lines up. Personally, makes a lot of sense timeline wise what's going on with the John Wick character in John Wick 3. So that bothered me. And the group that Anna de Armas is chasing after that killed her father in this movie, like they had like the group in this movie is apparently some group in this world that doesn't have any rules like the other groups in this world. I just felt like they were very like generic bad guys, and the main bad guy in this movie, which I don't remember the name of the actor, I felt like his character was just it's part. This group was like a cult group in this movie. They don't add anything to the John Wick world. I also think it's weird that they don't follow any rules. I don't understand why the groups don't just take them out if they're like a problem. But the leader in charge of the group, he was just a very what's the name of it? Gabio something. The actor who plays the leader of this cult in this movie, and his villain is just a very generic bad guy. There was nothing to his character. It's like to me the actor's fine in the movie, but they don't give him anything interesting with his character. So he's just a very generic, forgettable villain. Not very interesting. This whole cult group, I just also like I said, I don't like this whole cult group. I don't understand why they're even in this John Wick world because they don't add anything to the lore, and also they don't follow any rules. I don't understand why the other groups in this world keep, like I said, keep this cult around when they don't even abide to any rules. So I thought that was just weird. I was like, okay, I don't think that really makes a lot of sense when every other group we met in the John Wick movies have rules. So this cult group just didn't add anything personally to me with the John Wick lore or anything. And just the Leto group, the villain, which is a very generic, forgettable, bland villain to me. And like I said, his setup is just generic with her losing her father. I've seen that story like 1,000 times. It doesn't. And look, I don't have a problem if you take like story elements from other movies. Is if you can execute in a way that's interesting. And execution to me was kind of like generic. So, like I said, there's some cool action with like especially with grenades and a flamethrower. I thought that was really cool personally. It does get a little over the top at the end. I will admit that with the flamethrower stuff. It does, but I'm not gonna lie and say here I didn't get some fun out of those flamethrower acid scenes and the grenade scenes. It does get a little, like I said, over the top at the end with the flamethrower, but I did get some fun out of it, so I'm not gonna lie about that. But overall, it's a like to me it's a fun turn your brain off acid movie, but at the end of the day, I was disappointed because I felt like you could decide potential to really be great. And look, I don't think this is a bad movie in this franchise. It's it's just the weakest for me personally. Where if I'm in a mood to watch a John Wick movie, I'm gonna go to those first four. They stuck like the action to me in those first four. I think are better too. The stories I think are better in those first four. I think John Wick character is just a more compelling, interesting character. But overall, if you're looking for just like a generic turn your brain off action movie, I would recommend it. Like it's a it's a fun action movie, but it's generic, predictable. It's not gonna be one of the best action like it's not gonna be one of those movies, one of my favorites of the year. But it's to me, it's a fun enough one watch time to go to the theaters. It's not like I said, it's not gonna be an action movie that's gonna stick with you. But I think if you're looking for just a turn your brain off action movie, you'll be entertained enough by this movie. Oh, and forgot about this one element of the plot. So Anna Dominguez, you find out that her sister is part of this group, this cult group, and that whole storyline, yeah, that didn't really. The way it was executed was just not very interesting or compelling in this movie, and they didn't really develop it enough, in my opinion. So that whole element of the story didn't really do anything for me. But like I said, fun enough ass movie, turn your brain off. But it's a movie you'll forget about afterwards. So I would say recommend it. I would recommend this movie if you're looking for just a generic turn your brain off ass movie as a one-time watch, but it's not a movie I'll like. I feel you need to go back and watch again and again. So that's my thoughts on Ballerina. Until next time, movie fans.